Hey everyone, it's Jennifer McGuire. Today I am a guest on the Neat and Tangled blog, and I'm talking about how you can make the outside of your cards match the inside of your cards. And in doing so, I'm going to show you a fun technique. I just love this technique, and I hadn't done it in many years, and I call it the distress ink bleed. It sounds gross, but it's actually quite fun. It's what I used to create this card. This was really fast to do, even though it looks like it took a bit of work, but we're really going to let the distress inks and the water do all the work for us. And then I'll show you how I did the inside of the card too. So I have this stamp from Neat and Tangled. I think it's fantastic. It's just beautiful. So I'm going to stamp it onto watercolor paper. This is Tim Holtz Distress watercolor paper. Any kind of watercolor paper would work well. This is my favorite. And I'm going to add some distress inks to this stamp. Distress inks react with water, and we're going to take advantage of that in a moment. But I want to apply various colors onto this stamp. So I'm using 4 different colors: Seedless Preserves, Picked Raspberries, Salty Ocean, and Chipped Sapphire. Now you'll notice that some of the ink touches with another ink pad. That's okay. It doesn't harm the ink pad in any way. Just getting a nice mix of color on here. Now this won't be the perfect stamped image when I stamp this. I don't normally use distress inks for plain stamping. I use them for techniques, and it doesn't matter. I just want to get some good color down. So now it's time to do that look of bleeding in the background that you see behind the black stamped image. This is something that's fantastic about distress inks, and it's so easy to do. So I have this on watercolor paper, remember that, and we're going to add some water to it. But I'm going to temporarily adhere it to a piece of scrap chipboard. This is just so that it doesn't warp when I add the water. I want it to keep it nice and flat. And I'm going to take my mini mister here, and from about 4 inches away I'm going to give it 1 spritz. And then I'm going to do 1 spritz at a time over the entire stamped image, but only 1 spritz over each spot, because we just want that little bit of bleeding to happen. If you do more water, it'll just bleed more, but I like kind of the little veiny streaks that you get by just doing a touch of water. So I just mist each area about 4 inches away with water, and there you have a great bleed that you get from the image. And you could leave it like this if you wanted to, but I'm going to stamp over it in a moment. But I'm heating it just to speed up the drying process. This is a really quick card to make. So it's fun to use distress inks in this way because you can allow the water to do the work for you. It just makes that color bleed. So now I decided, you could have left it how it was, but I decided to stamp right over the exact same image with black ink. So it looks like the color's just coming out from behind the black ink. It's just a different way of doing it. You could leave it how it was before. And there we have that really vibrant black image against that soft watercolor background. Now to finish this card, I decided I wanted to have a little something interesting on the black note card. So I'm going to clear emboss these stripes from Impression Obsession. I love doing kind of a tone-on-tone clear embossing background on a note card just to add just a little bit of interest to it. I thought this black note card was a nice touch around that very simple stamped image that we did earlier. You'll notice that I'm not taking any care to get the embossed area in the center of the card because only the sides of this embossing will be showing behind the stamp panel that we did earlier. I did decide I wanted a pop of color around our stamped piece here, so I've put it onto some pink paper, and then I'm just going to trim to get a nice mat on the 2 sides of the piece, and not on the top and the bottom, just on the 2 sides. And then I'll add this onto the note cards with some foam adhesive. So you can see that's quite simple, but I wanted to add something in the inside of the card to tie it all together. So I actually cut a white watercolor piece, and I've matted it on some pink paper just like I did on the front, but I cut it a little bit short in the height so that when I glue it on the inside of the card, my card folds nicely still. So I just cut it a slightly bit shorter so that it folds nicely. So now the inside of my card perfectly matches the outside of my card. Now I'm also going to do that same technique on the bottom, but with a simpler image. This is another Neat and Tangled set, and I've got this just simple outline heart. I'm going to stamp it once with some Seedless Preserves, and then I'll just add a little bit of water to it. Now I'm doing it a little bit different this time. I'm doing one color, and then I'm going to spritz it and let it dry, and then I'm going to do another color right on top of it. It's just because this was such a tiny image, I couldn't really get a lot of colors on top of it. So I did the one, and now I'm going back with the Salty Ocean, stamping it right on top and misting it again to make the blue bleed also. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to stamp with the black once again. So there you have the inside of the card really matching nicely with the outside of the card. It's a nice finishing touch to a card and something that I try to do often. So there you have a fun technique of allowing your distress inks to bleed to give you a fun watercolor look. And this Neat and Tangled stamp works really good with this technique. If you have any questions, please head over to the Neat and Tangled blog, and thanks so much for stopping by.